Do walkers and canes make people lean forward? So many people have told me that they don't want to start using a walker or cane because they're afraid that it's going to make them lean forward. So this video is going to talk about this question, which seems to come up so often. I did a video a few weeks ago about the best ways to walk, and I mentioned using whether or not you should use a walker or cane. And so many people commented that they didn't want to do that because walkers make people lean forward. So to start off, I'm going to tell you that walkers and canes on their own do not make people lean forward. And let me try to explain why I say that. So the idea of a walker or cane is to give you more points of contact with the ground while you walk. So normally when you walk, one foot is always in contact with the ground. When you stand, both feet are in contact with the ground. So walking is an exercise in learning to balance on one foot. And a lot of people, for a lot of reasons, cannot balance on one leg. So those people would benefit from a cane, which has a single point of contact. So they actually always have 2 points of contact with the ground while they're walking, or a walker, which has 4 points of contact, so that they have 4 things on the ground plus one of their feet. So they always have 5 points of contact. And that makes your balance better. So all canes and walkers, the intention, if they're the right equipment, right assistive device for you, is that you walk more upright, that your balance is better, that you're able to take a longer stride, that you're able to walk with your feet closer together in a more normal walking pattern. All of those things allow you to walk further with less energy expenditure and much less chance of falling. So the intention and the purpose of a walker or cane is not to lean forward. Leaning forward is not part of that. So the idea that they make you lean forward is untrue. If I go to a supermarket and I push a shopping cart, I'm not leaning forward on the cart unless I try to lean forward. If I want to lean onto the shopping cart, I can, but I also volitionally don't have to. I'm pushing the shopping cart, not to take weight off of my legs, but to push my groceries so I can get all the groceries I need. But someone pushing a shopping cart with a balance problem is going to actually feel more steady, more stable, because the cart has 4 points of contact and it's heavy, and it makes you feel like there's less chance of you falling. So you can walk more upright, you can take a longer stride, you walk more normally. So why do people feel that a walker or a cane makes people lean forward? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, there's a bias issue. If you looked at the whole population on the planet, and then you looked at all the people who need to use a walker or cane because they're unsteady, and you just push them to one side and you said, okay, this is the group of people that need a walker or cane, you're going to find a lot of them have arthritis, have bad vision, are weak, and so a lot of them tend to lean forward no matter what. Whether you give them a walker or cane, they're leaning forward. And many of those people, it's so bad, their walking and their balance is so bad that they can't walk without grabbing furniture or grabbing the wall. If you give that group of people a walker or a cane or a shopping cart, they're definitely going to lean forward. So I believe people that lean forward tend to use walkers more than the average person. I don't believe that people that use walkers have a tendency to lean forward. And that might sound silly, and that some of you might chuckle at that, but there is some truth to that. So if you are sitting in a shopping center and you're watching people walk by and you notice some people have walkers, I guarantee you a lot of them are going to be leaning forward. But that doesn't mean that they were perfectly straight until the walker came along and then the walker made them lean forward. And I think a lot of you are going to get that point that, there's a bit of bias that we have and why that's happening. But I'm going to describe to you exactly how a walker or cane does make you lean forward, and it is a bad thing.
So if you have a tendency if your body weight is shifted forward because your head is very forward, you have arthritis and your back is leaning forward and you really can't stand up straight, your center of gravity is in front of you. And that is really a description of a lot of older people, that because of arthritis, they really are leaning forward. They can't stand perfectly straight. So when they have a walker or cane, they're leaning forward and steadying themselves by putting some of their body weight through the walker. Now the problem is, over time, if you practice walking and leaning forward, your body will get better at it. You'll learn how to take steps while you're leaning forward, which is different how you used to walk. You usually walk upright where your body weight goes through each leg. But over time, if you lean forward, you're going to tend to lean more and more forward. If we could measure it, if we could put a scale underneath the walker and measure how much pressure someone is putting on a walker, over time, that's going to get worse. But that might be getting worse just because their condition is worsening. The person might be getting weaker over time, and if they're weaker, they're leaning more of their weight onto the walker. So in a sense, yes, if you're leaning forward, you might be leaning more forward because you're using the walker over time. However, people that's true for, if they're already leaning forward, those people wouldn't walk at all if it wasn't for the walker. So I would argue that for many people, leaning onto the walker is actually a good thing. That them leaning forward actually allows them to walk and be mobile. And if they didn't lean forward, they simply aren't going to walk. And I don't think anyone would make the argument that if you can't stand up straight, just don't walk at all, because your body deteriorates. Every week that you don't walk, you get incredibly weak and you lose the ability to balance in just a few weeks. It's kind of like, astronauts that go into space and they don't have gravity. They don't move against gravity. You get very weak incredibly quickly by not working against gravity. So not walking is a one-way ticket to decline. So everybody should really try and maintain their ability to walk, but leaning on the walker, if they have to, if that's the only way they can do it, then actually that's good for them. At least they're mobile. Now, one thing I want to mention is, because this comes up so often, is people tell me that if their loved one is leaning forward, or if they're leaning forward, they just want to raise the walker up and it'll make them lean less. And I completely understand the logic behind that. And I've had medical doctors tell me this. I've had many patients. I've had patients that are engineers tell me this. So if you have a tower and the tower is leaning forward, and you put a piece of wood, you prop a piece of wood up against the tower to push against that lean, the tower is going to stand up straighter. If you have a tree in your yard that's leaning over, and you get a piece of wood and you hammer it in the ground and you stake it to the tree, that'll prevent the tree from leaning forward. But people aren't towers or trees. The reason that someone is leaning forward almost always is because they don't feel balanced unless they're doing that, unless they're putting their weight through their hands into the walker or cane. So if you raise it up higher, they're still going to lean forward. They're still going to put their weight onto the walker. You can raise it, head high. If they grab onto it, they're still going to lean onto the walker. And either they're going to push the walker way out in front of them to allow themselves to, their shoulders to still lean on it, or they're going to find some way of doing it. They'll grab the walker at a lower part. I've seen it. I can tell you, categorically, there is no way to make someone be up straighter by raising the walker. And I know, some people are probably going to write me comments that they disagree with that, because, you see on TV advertised these platform type walkers where you lean your forearm on the walker instead of your hands. And they call them upright walkers, and there's a lot of different names for it. If someone leans their weight, they're still leaning their weight onto the walker. Now, those upright walkers, If you lean a lot, those are definitely better because it's easier on your wrists, and it's just much easier to put your weight onto the walker if you're doing it through your forearm than through your hand. So I'm definitely think those are good things, but they don't make someone who's leaning lean less. If you, again, going back to the scale idea, if you put a scale under a walker, a regular walker, versus one of these upright walkers, the person that's leaning is going to lean just as much on either walker. It's just that they're leaning on a different part of their body, and it definitely, over time, it's much easier to lean on your forearm than it is on your hand. So just to recap this whole thing, walkers and canes are great because they help people walk with better balance. It helps them walk more upright. It helps them take longer step length, walk with a more normal gait. It actually helps them walk better. It improves their walking. But if someone has a tendency to lean on a walker, over time, that is going to get worse. And that's going to make their walking and their posture be more forward and leaning forward. And the answer really isn't to tell that person, just stand up straighter or to raise the walker up higher. The answer, if someone's doing that, is to try to make your balance better. Try to learn how to be less dependent on the walker. Some people that are watching this, they might actually have pretty good balance, but they say, when I use a walker, I do lean on it a lot. And I would say, probably that's because you're afraid of falling, or you've just practiced leaning and your body has gotten better and better at leaning forward. So to those people, I would say you need to do something that'll help you learn to balance on one leg better. Because if you can balance on one leg, then you won't need the walker as much and you won't be leaning on it as much. The best exercise for that is a video that I did, and I'm going to put a link to this video in the description of this video, and that's to do a one-leg stand. So what you do is stand at a sink or at your walker or behind a chair, grab that sink, lift one leg up, and then try to let go of the sink and balance yourself on one leg. And the more times you do that, the better you'll get at balancing and standing just on one leg. And that's what's going to allow you to not lean on the walker as much and walk with more upright posture. So I hope this video was helpful, and if you like this video, please follow my channel and subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this. And I hope this helps.